Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I'm going to let some people roll into the space. It is top of the hour, but I am so happy to have you all here. Yep, I'm seeing the names roll in very slowly but surely. But just to kick it off, say hi, leverage the chat. I would love to see where people are from today. This session is all about exploring pre-sales. So I feel like we have some really great content to dive into. So I'm really excited to explore that with you all. And we will get into that very shortly. Ooh, Philadelphia, Denver. I love it. Yeah, put your location in the chat. We also have a lovely Q&A feature that I highly recommend leveraging for any questions you have throughout this session. What we usually will do is we'll take a break in the middle to answer any immediate burning questions, and then we will answer questions at the end of our session. So do not worry, there'll be opportunities for you to have your questions answered. And nice, from people from the Bay Area and Charleston, I love it, and LA. This is amazing. I want to be mindful of our time. So let's get into the session for tonight. Our agenda for today is really encompassing. We have a bit of a conversation on what is pre-sales in general. So educating y'all about the profession. We're going to dive into what skills are really needed for pre-sales, because I know a lot of people are exploring this profession. You're figuring out, hey, is this a really good space for me to spend my time, invest myself to make sure I'm finding the right career pathway forward? And I want to dive into that today with y'all. We're also going to talk about why should you consider pre-sales as a profession in general. We're also going to talk about our program, PreSales Academy, and you all will have the opportunity to meet an amazing graduate from PreSales Academy. Jimmy Lee will be joining us today to talk about his experience going through the academy and also landing his first solutions consultant job. And then we'll also open it up from QA later. So that's our agenda for today. It's going to be fun. We also, as a reminder to any new people coming into the space, the QA feature is going to be the right space for you to ask questions, just so that we can keep track of it throughout this session. That being said, let's do some introductions. I'm going to hand it over to my co-presenter to introduce herself to kick it off.
Thanks so much, Nina. I'm super excited to be here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Liz Anderson. I'm the Director of Learning here at PreSales Collective. So what does that mean? I'm in charge of all of our programs around learning and education, which includes PreSales Academy. PreSales Academy is super near and dear to my heart. It's something that I have volunteered with when I was still back being an SE manager and leading a team, and just couldn't stay away. So I had to come on board. I have been in the pre-sales world for well over a decade and super excited to talk to you all about PSA today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Liz. Some other notable people who are not on the call today, Chris Mabry is our general manager for PreSales Collective. So fun fact, PreSales Academy is part of PreSales Collective. So if you're looking for a community to really nerd out on thought leadership related to pre-sales, this is the space. So Chris is coming to us from great years within the profession, and then directly also on our team, we have Winnie Delson, who's our training program manager, and there's also me. So my name is Nina Berger. My role here at PreSales Academy is I'm the career services manager. So I really focus in on our missions and our placements part of PreSales Academy. So making sure that anyone coming into the academy is a good fit, and then also assisting our students as they're going throughout their job search process. I also dabble in our other enablement programs, but this is our core team that really interacts with our program. So, and we love just helping career changers figure out, hey, is pre-sales the right profession for me? And what do I need to do to thrive and launch my career in this space? So let's get into this. Before we dive into our content, I really want to tease some information about our program. I have found that our students who come into PreSales Academy, and also people who just come into the PreSales profession in general come from a wide variety of backgrounds. I see people who come in with sales experience. I see people who come in with technical experience. And then I see people who come into the program who have maybe no technical and sales experience, but they have highly transferable skills and highly connected competencies from their past roles. Here's some student examples for y'all to kind of get a better picture. Cassie comes from an educator background. She worked in K through 12 education. She comes from a teacher background. So she was able to leverage her presenting skills and teaching complex concepts to a variety of audiences to make her first step into Beeline as a sales engineer. Evan, on the other hand, has a bit of business development experience. So he has a little bit of that sales side to him, but he was looking for some refinement related to the pre-sales role. He wanted to work on his presentations. He really wanted to develop a little bit more technical acumen to really launch himself into the pre-sales position. So that's what kind of led him into the space. And now he's working at ServiceNow. And then Camilla is my last example. She comes from a services consultant background, so highly technical. She was coming into our program to really refine her presentation skills, develop a little bit more of that sales acumen in her business side to really launch herself into the role where she's now at Tenable. And so I shared this all because people coming into pre-sales come from a variety of backgrounds. This is not a role we often just kind of aspire to earn and get into when we were kids. It's a role that people don't really figure out until they're later down the line and they're in a technology role or a sales role. And so that's why there is such a great space for career changers in this profession. There is a constant thirst for new and transferable skills to come into this space. And that's what we're kind of here to talk about. But before we talk about PreSales Academy, I really want to talk about what is pre-sales in general, just to provide some more clarity to you all. So what is pre-sales? Pre-sales ultimately is a sales function that really exists in business to business technology sales. So think about a company, let's say Google. Google is looking to purchase, let's say Gchat doesn't exist and they're looking to purchase a messaging software. Google would work with a company like Slack to adopt a product that they can use to message each other. Or let's say a company is coming in and they're looking for a video conferencing platform. Zoom would be that kind of product out there. So it really exists when two businesses are looking to kind of like either sell a product or purchase a product for their company. And a really good way to understand the pre-sales role in the realm of technical sales is to just look at the three main tech sales roles that exist in the space. So let's start with the basics. This role is pretty common. So, and you might have heard of this before, but one of the most common roles in technical sales is your sales development rep or your SDR or BDR. They're ultimately the person who opens the sales process. They're the person on the front end who's really finding the customers to bring in. They are engaging with customers, they're doing cold calls, they are really making the introduction of the customer to the account executive, who I'll explain shortly, and they're really doing research into, hey, who are we selling our product, our software to? So they exist really much at the front end of the sales process. Then we have our account executive. This is also a very common role in technical sales. They are really the person who owns the client experience and is very much the person who manages relationships. We also refer to them as a closer because they are the person in the technical sales process who manages the sales opportunity from, hey, they are qualified, let's get them to the point where we are negotiating with them and we're closing the deal. We've earned that win. So ultimately, this person will kind of leverage the knowledge and the clients from the sales development rep. They'll take them in, bring them under their wing. They'll manage those relationships, and they will kind of see the sale from that front end to the closing end. And then what really happens in the middle of the sales process is where we see our pre-sales consultant or our solutions consultant. So this role in the technical sales process really comes in the middle of the sales process. So we know that our client is qualified, they have a good fit for our product, but they want to learn more about our product. Sure, the account executive that can tell them a bit about it, but you really need a solutions expert to showcase that product. You need someone to come in who knows the ins and outs of the product and be able to connect with the customer to really seal the deal. And so, what the solutions consultant or the sales engineer does, they really are the ones who will come in, work in tandem with the account executive to get to know the client. They will uncover business problems within the customer. They will really show and find solutions with their technology. And ultimately, they're also performing product demos. They're the one who's showing, hey, you have an issue. Our product can fix that issue at the end of the day. And so that's why they exist in the middle of the sales process, because they're the one presenting the product and showcasing that, hey, it works on the technical side and it also can bring your company value. They are not the ones who bring in the customer. They're really the ones who are existing in the middle, because that customer will work still with the account executive for that final closing of the deal. So I've thrown around a lot of terms in regards to the pre-sales role, but it is perfectly normal and understandable if you're like, hey, Nina, there's a lot of titles related to pre-sales. And that's kind of normal for this profession. I have found that a lot of companies just gravitate towards different titles, but ultimately they really do mean the same role within the tech sales process. So if I'm saying pre-sales or sales engineer or solutions consultant, solutions engineer, they're ultimately that same role as that person who exists in the middle of the sales process, and they're really providing that connection from the account executive to kind of like the product and showcasing the product and answering those types of questions. So it is perfectly normal to be like, hey, there's a lot of titles in this space, because that's just where we're at. But just for the sake of this presentation, I will be using a solutions consultant for most of the language related to pre-sales. So that being said, we understand the different roles in tech sales. We understand the basics of pre-sales and a solution consultant, but what does the day-to-day look like for our solutions consultant? So you probably got a couple pieces of it from my explanation of the tech sales roles, but here's a little bit more in-depth look. Ultimately, I would say these are the big 5 categories that you see a solution consultant engaging with in their week-to-week work. The first and big thing a solution consultant does is conduct product demos. So they're really showing how a product can help solve a customer's business challenges. So sometimes they're configuring software and making sure it fits to their audience, because the way that you present a product is going to look different for a VP of sales versus a manager of a team, because you want to make sure those presentations are tailored and just fit your audience well. Also, this part of the role is notably really energizing, because you get to get people excited about your product. You get to kind of lead the room and really get to kind of show off your chops and your strong communication skills. The other things a solutions consultant does is they lead discovery meetings. So even before you lead a demo presentation, you need to connect with your client to discover, hey, what are your pain points? These are amazing opportunities where solution consultants get to build rapport. They get to leverage active listening. They get to ask really meaningful questions, and they kind of get to do a little digging around and figure out, hey, what do I need to show this customer in my demo that's going to really make their eyes pop? The other things that a solution consultant does is they answer technical and business questions, which really leads them to solving problems. So they really act as that solution and product expert. Honestly, what's really nice about having a role that is where you're answering a lot of questions and solving problems is you are constantly in a space where, hey, I get to expose myself to something new. I have a new challenge, and it allows the day-to-day work to be ever changing. In addition, you also get to build relationships. You get to build relationships with your account executive because you get to partner with them within a sale. You also get to build relationships with your customers because, hey, you're coming in as a consultant in the middle of the process. You need to build instant trust and a connection with someone so that they're listening to you going forward. And also you get to build relationships with other internal partners at your company, which really goes into my last point is you also get to provide a lot of feedback and insight into the product that you're working with. Since you sit so close to the product, you're presenting it day in and day out to different customers, you get a lot of insight into, hey, what do the customers want? What really are the newest innovations that kind of are needed in our products so that we are dominating the market and we're getting more sales. So that's also a really exciting thing because you get to still build more relationships over time, but you also get to kind of have this insight that you can leverage and help your team and your company. So those are some of the major aspects of a pre-sales role. What's not included in the role, just for clarity's sake, is usually, since this roles exist in the middle of the sales process, you're not seeing any cold calling. You're also not seeing negotiating because that's usually covered by the account executive. And then depending on the role, keep in mind there's some companies who have very technical products, others have less technical products. You're usually seeing no coding. So you're usually not actually building the product at all. You might have to leverage your technical knowledge to explain a concept or even dive in and kind of make sure that, hey, we're setting up my presentation environment properly, but usually you don't see coding in this role because it's usually saved for more software engineer type people. That being said, I will answer a quick question before we move on to my next session, which is what skills are needed. The answer for the question in the Q&A about are the slides and recording will be shared out? Yes, this whole recording will be shared out to everyone registered for this meeting. So that'll be shared out afterwards and you'll have access to this information to refer back to, just make sure, hey, did I capture all the little nuggets that were shared here? So great question in the audience. If you have more questions, feel free to continually put it in the Q&A box. We will periodically look back into it and make sure those questions are answered. That being said, let's get into our next part of this presentation, which is what skills are needed for pre-sales. This is a question I am asked a lot of times for career changers because ultimately you want to know that, hey, I have some foundational skills and experiences that can be leveraged into pre-sales, and I'm not starting brand new going into this profession. Like I mentioned with those student profiles before, there are a wide variety of experiences and backgrounds people can use to come into the pre-sales space. And I think what's more important to think about is, hey, you need to have a certain collection of skills and experiences tied to those skills to be successful in this profession. Not to say you need to have experience directly in the pre-sales role, but you need to have experience related to certain competencies that are necessary for success in this profession. So keeping in mind that our solutions consultants are really skilled members of the sales team who need to identify problems and define a path going forward to solve those products, and they need to showcase the solution. What are the skills necessary for success in pre-sales? Well, I'm going to answer that for y'all. The first skill that I think is vital for success in pre-sales is really communication. And I know this sounds very simple, but there's a lot more to it. You need to have strong communication skills, both verbal and written. When I'm talking about verbal presentation skills, I'm really talking about, hey, how are you coming into a space and communicating with others? What presence do you bring into an audience? Are you a person who can genuinely connect with other people and really make a lasting impression? In addition to that verbal side and your presence, how are you conveying ideas and helping other people understand what you're presenting? Are you just showing them, or are you really allowing them to learn? Because you need strong communication skills to allow for yourself to teach your audience. Because let's face it, most of the people who are coming in and buying these software products do not know the ins and outs of the product. That is your job. You are going to be their teacher and their guider, and you need to be very persuasive in your presentations to engage your audience and get that ultimate win. Because let's face it, there are a lot of products out there, and there's a lot of products that do the same things across the board. And so you need to be convincing, and you have strong communication skills to really make your client feel like, hey, I'm purchasing the best product out there and it's a good fit for me. So communication skills are vital. I talked a lot about the verbal side, but also on the written side, you do need to correspond with a lot of different teammates, whether that is on messaging platforms or emails. A lot of times people in the pre-sales world, they forget that, hey, I have to talk with clients over email. I need to send follow-ups. And so think about the times where you've had to really break down your concepts in a written form. Like the ability to make things clear and succinct is really powerful in this space. And it's really going to be important to not only making an initial connection, but also to follow up and make sure everyone has the right information post a meeting through an email or another form of written communication. So I would say communication can come in a lot of different forms, but overall, if you're coming into the space and you have a lot of presenting experience, you have an ability to capture your audience, I would say that pre-sales could be definitely an interesting connection for you, especially if those are areas that give you energy as well. The next skill that I think is so necessary for pre-sales is technical curiosity. So when I talk about technical curiosity, I'm talking about your ability to kind of deep dive into a topic and really learn something, whether that is learning about a product, whether that is learning about a foundational concept that kind of relates to a product. It's so important to be able to say, hey, I don't know what this is. I'm going to take the initiative and go learn this. Because when you work in a role in technical sales, things are ever changing. You need to know the updates to your product, but also you need to have a good perspective of who you're talking to and the market out there. You need to do research and have that curiosity to, hey, be like, hey, what are my customers currently working with? What are things that they currently have in their tech stack that I might not need to learn for my own knowledge and kind of understanding of how they are and how they're coming into the space. So if you are a person who's like, Nina, I am a learner at heart. I love to bring in new skills into my portfolio, and not only just to have a basic foundation, but also to master it over time, then this could be a really good space for you, because let's face it, this is a role that's ever changing. Your products are changing, your customers are changing. So you need to have that ability to really lean into it. So also, if you've been in a space where, hey, in my position, I've had to learn new softwares, new products to complete my role, that's a really good skill you can leverage as an example of, hey, I have technical curiosity. Next is problem solving. I know I mentioned problem solving before, but I would be amiss if I don't mention it again. Problem solving is so vital for this role. It's really your ability to identify customer pain points. It's really your ability to tailor your solution, making sure that, hey, I'm just not showing the product, I'm showing a specific aspect of the product. So if you are a person who's like, hey, I love change. I love thriving on adaptability. I love thriving on creative thinking. I want to find a solution. I'm driven by that solution. Then this is a place for you. Like, think about the times in your roles where you've had to deal with a problem and get to a new endpoint or find a pathway forward. Was that a time where you were really excited? Was that really satisfying at the end? If it's satisfying for you, this could be a really cool space for you, because ultimately you have a lot of problem solving, because every customer coming in is different. Every case scenario is different, and every presentation you're doing is different. So that does require you to be very adaptable and also think on your feet and problem solve. And then last but not least is collaboration. Now, I know I only highlighted about 4 different skills, but I think these are the 4 most important skills for pre-sales. I can give you a laundry list of other skills, but I think these are 4 that you should really start out and being like, hey, do these check my boxes? So that being said, let's talk about collaboration. Collaboration, like I mentioned with the position description of a solutions consultant, is just a major aspect of the role, because it is very much a team role. Yes, you're the one who's individually giving your presentations, but you're working on a sales team. Your sales team will look like other solution consultants. You'll look like your account executives. And so if you are a person who's like, I love working with a variety of people, give me people I can bounce ideas off of to work together and get that group win as a whole, then this is your space for you. So think about in your current positions or past experiences where you've had to collaborate with others. What was that experience like for you? Because this is a space where, hey, you have to consistently collaborate with others, whether that is on an internal team or even working and collaborating with external people like your customers to kind of get to the end point of your sale. That being said, those are my big skills that I really think are important for pre-sales. At the end of the day, if you are really rocking the communication, your technical side, your problem solving, and the collaboration, I feel like this could be a really good space for you to explore because these are skills that are really valued by this profession. And with the right kind of reskilling and kind of additional learnings and training, you could really be able to reposition those past skills that you bring to the table and make them better align with this profession. Anyway, that being said, before we dive a little bit into what is Pre-Sales Academy, I do want to leave on a final note of like, why is pre-sales a really cool profession to explore? Because personally, I don't even come from a pre-sales background. I came from higher education, and I've spent almost 2 years here with Pre-Sales Academy and Pre-Sales Collective, and I am consistently hyped about this profession and what it offers the community, what it offers professionals. So what I really like about pre-sales and why I think pre-sales is a cool profession to explore is, first of all, it's a dynamic profession. It is a place where there's a fast pace, there's change, there's professionals really engaging in some really cool technology that is really innovative and changing the world. But what I also like, and you probably have gotten these little notes from earlier in the presentation, but I love the variety of change that comes into with pre-sales. You really get to work with unique clients who have unique challenges. So it really allows you to change up your approach. It really requires you to think differently every time you're interacting with new people, which is a refreshing taste because, hey, doing the same thing over and over, let's face it, can be really boring for people. So variety of challenges really promotes change, and it allows you to kind of feel like, hey, we're doing something new all the time, even though the base components of your role are similar, especially with doing demos. But hey, the environments in which you're doing them change. The next thing to think about is role impact. I think it's really awesome to be in a position and a role that has such a significant place in shaping the customer experience. You really are able to be that person who kind of takes a customer from a no to a yes. You're the one who can really present a product to a customer and being like, oh, wow, I didn't realize we had so many limiting aspects of our business. Now, look at all the potential this new product can give to us. It really allows you to make meaningful contributions to business success. And I think that's really exciting because you kind of get this element of getting the win. Like the competition element of sales definitely exists. And when you're in a role that definitely plays into getting that closing of the sale, it really can be exciting and exhilarating. Last but not least on this slide is career growth, which I think is a pivotal thing to think about, especially if you're a career changer. Like the pre-sales role offers you such transferable skills. I already identified the transferable skills that you can take and bring into pre-sales, but once you've gained additional training in pre-sales and experience in this space, you can take these skills into a variety of roles. Yes, you can work up and down the pre-sales typical verticals for growth in your role, but also you can take those skills and go into different roles in technical sales or even just tech in general and find new exciting places for you to grow and shape your career. Let's face it, y'all, this is 2024. Our careers are not just vertical, they are horizontal, they're tangential. And so I think it's really important to think about, hey, how am I positioning myself in a role that allows me for flexibility and transferable skills for years down the line? So those are some really good highlights, I would say, that make me think, oh, pre-sales, this is the greatest job in tech. In addition, there also is that side of high earning potential in pre-sales. Since you do sit in the front end of the sales process, you're able to kind of like benefit from a higher salary. We do see students who come into Pre-Sales Academy start out with a pretty nice compensation package. And it's nice because you exist in a role that has both base and variable pay. So there is a higher earning potential over time when you're in this profession. This is just a cherry on top. I really like the more dynamic aspects of pre-sales. And I think what's also awesome about pre-sales is you get to work with a lot of cool products. Like this is a quick snapshot of some companies that some of our students work at, but this these products are changing. They are big names in the industry, and it's a really cool space to be like, hey, I get to work at a company who touches a lot of different companies and has such a large range and impact. So those are what things I think is really important to think about when you're exploring pre-sales. It's like, hey, are there things that really get me excited about the longevity of this career and profession in general? That being said, let's take a quick break for any questions before I get into next steps. I see your question, Trevor. Let me read it. How's the job market for pre-sales right now? Software developer noticed some softening in hiring. Has it been similar in pre-sales? Considering you'll be a candidate with experience? Honestly, a really great question. Liz, feel free to chime in if you want. I would say the market for pre-sales, like any role in sales, is always ebbing and flowing. What we've been seeing, especially in the end of Q4 of last year, is we saw a bit of a spike in roles. We saw more teams looking to expand. And I think what we're seeing now is companies are readjusting they're coming out of their sales kickoffs, and they're determining, hey, what are the roles we want to fill? And from my conversations with companies, I've been seeing kind of like a steady, hey, we need to bring back our staffing for these teams to really build up our talent. What we've been seeing in kind of like 2023 is some teams definitely stood very kind of like set in their numbers, and we're a little bit more conservative with hiring. And I think a lot of teams are ready to build back out again because it's just needed for the amount of customers and demands in this role. So overall, I say the market is always ebbing and flowing, but I've been seeing kind of like indicators of good success over time. Liz, do you have any other additional comments to that question?
No, I think you hit it spot on. I mean, just in general, tech is, it's not, I will say it's not like it was 3 years ago where everybody, was hiring on an up curve, but we are seeing our students get placed, especially those who are, really dedicated to the program and are looking to take the action in their own hands and really work towards that, grit and that dedication to get that role, especially seeing, you're coming from with a technical background that definitely doesn't hurt.
Yep, definitely. Good questions. I'll save the rest of the questions for later in our presentation, but keep on adding them to the chat. I'm going to hand it over to Liz to talk about our next sections of the presentation.
Yeah. As Nina covered, we talked a little bit about what pre-sales is, what skills are really necessary to have going into the role, and why it's a career worth considering. So let's talk about how PreSales Academy can really help you get that role. As we mentioned, it's a high-paying role for a reason because it requires knowledge and skills and is, something that you can't necessarily get straight out of college. So how do you prepare yourself to make that transition? And so we're going to talk a little bit about what we've built at PreSales Academy to give you the knowledge and skills to give you the best, to give you that best shot into landing that pre-sales role and start your career. So to give you an idea of what our program looks like, so we have a 10-week course that goes through 3 distinct stages, which I'll go through in a minute. And there's a ton of really fabulous content in a part of these 10 weeks. As you can see here, there's over 100 hours of content, which is really meant to give you the best foundation possible so that when somebody asks you about best practices and demonstrations or discovery or how to answer that objection, you kind of know what those principles are. We also have 12 live sessions that are a part of this program. There is a lot of content that you learn on your own, but it is also really important that we have that live learning environment where you can have things like role play sessions where you think about the discovery and the demo phase and really put in that practice, because without that practice you're not going to get there in terms of your skill set. And there's 8 topics that we take a look at as a part of the program curriculum, which I'll go over now. So first, we're going to go through just a general overview of what pre-sales is. Nina just barely touched the surface on kind of a pre-sales overview, but we go into a little bit more depth here. We talk also about the sales process and value. We know many of you come from non-traditional backgrounds, so we want to make sure that you're prepared when you go into a sales environment. When they talk about the DISCO or qualification or ROI or value, what they're talking about so that you can speak their language. We then talk about discovery and preparation. Discovery is one of the backbones of being a solutions engineer, because if you don't have the right information, if you don't know how to ask the right questions, if you're not asking them in the correct way, you're not going to have the knowledge to be able to then go into the presentation and demo phase where you're able to showcase your solution in a way that really hits on the key points that customer needs to understand. Because it's not just about doing a standard CAN demo. Anybody can do that. I know we all hate, you go into an environment, somebody shows you exactly what the same thing that they do all the time, and you're like, well, I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I don't care about that. Oh, maybe that's a little bit okay, but I needed to go more in depth. So the idea is that we're showing you how to minimize those and showcase specifically what the customer wants to see. We then go over a little bit of what technical validation looks like, again, some core technologies, finding the right pre-sales role. Pre-sales can be in a variety of fields. I mean, there's still hardware pre-sales out there, there's software pre-sales, so it was in solutions engineering, in sales engineering. Some people like to say sometimes you find a big S and little e where it's much more on the sales work focus, and sometimes it's a small S and a big E where it's a lot more on the technical focus. And so, understanding based off of your background, based off of what you're interested in, what might be the right direction for you. And then, of course, at the end, capping it all off is how to interview for pre-sales roles. Every role has its own particular capstone or thing you need to understand, or how to appropriately interview. And so we do want to set you up for success there. So next, I want to talk a little bit about the stages that our program goes through. So as you can see here, the 10 weeks are broken up into 3 distinct stages. We have stage 1, which is all online. So that's the first 4 weeks of the program. You go self-paced, and you're typically looking at about 8 to 10 hours per week. You get virtual support, and you have assignments as a part of that. But this is really to get you that basic understanding of solutions engineering, of the pre-sales process, where you are understanding everything that you need to know from a baseline perspective. We then get into stage 2, and this is the most fun part of the program. This is where we get together live. We meet 3 to 4 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And this is from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, or starting at 7 for you folks on the Eastern time zones. And this is where we get to do group activities. We get to do those discussions. You get to do those role plays. And this is where you get that really distinct practice, and really where I see people, go from one particular aspect, and I see them grow tremendously in the 4 weeks that they are in this session. And then, of course, stage 3, this is preparing you for the job market. This is making sure that you have all your virtual assignments done. We go into your job pursuit office hours. You make sure that you are ready to get that role. You have your resumes all set, your LinkedIn all set up, and you have the right questions ready for that interview process. And, talking a little bit about how we train you. So we have some incredible trainers, advisors, people who have really not only set up our curriculum in a way for folks to get the best possible experience, but this is also something that we are continually looking at. And so what you see here is a non-exhaustive list of everyone who has had a hand in the curriculum of this. And as you look at folks' names and their roles, it goes from across the board. Some really amazing folks who just want to give back to the community and also have some really, really fabulous advice and who are the best in the industry. As you mentioned, this is just 6 of the over 30 folks who have been involved in the program and making this curriculum be best in class. So again, it is made for pre-sales professionals by pre-sales professionals. The program focuses overall on developing competency as well, not just your skills and knowledge. And we believe that it's not just the competency, the knowledge, the skill, the attitude, but it's also building that network and connections. It's building a support system that will help you throughout this career transition and beyond. Because as we all know, especially in the way that this job market is, our network and our connections are so incredibly important, and we want to help you along the way so you're not starting from zero. And again, this is super important, especially as you go through that process, because the knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, that's a great place to start. And it's only going to get better with having the right people backing you. On that same note, we can talk a little bit about the roles of the folks that, when you get into the program, will be supporting you. So first of all, you have your Pre-Sales Academy advisor, the folks who are, behind the scenes. So this is someone like Nina, like Winnie, where they are your cheerleader. They are there for support throughout the process, help you in the job placement coaching process, and of course, again, lifelong cheerleader. We then also have your coach. So this is the person who's going to help you, give you feedback as you're doing those live role play sessions, help you develop those competencies and give you specific direction. Basically, like if you were on their team. Many of these folks are leaders, and they're giving you the same type of advice that they would give folks on their team. And then, of course, you have your mentors. So these are the folks to give you really that advice, that sage advice and guidance, help you figure out, which direction you're going in pre-sales, being a sounding board, help you, with finding that right role or interview feedback and prep, et cetera. And one of the things that I love is that with all this, many of these folks are either 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. So you really get fabulous specific advice for you. So the support is tremendous. And these are folks who are in the field. They're not just like random folks. These are folks in the field. As we go to the next slide, this just gives you an idea of the many volunteers from our most recent cohort. And also our career advisors pretty much always outnumber the students that we have. We have such an incredible community. This is what I love about pre-sales in general, is folks just love to give back and love to see folks succeed. And not only this, but our number of alumni is always growing as well. One thing that I also will say here is, as much as we want to support you, as much as we have that support, at the end of the day, we can't put in the work for you. You have to put in the work. So if you are looking at this and says, this is exactly the type of role that I want, I have those skills, I want to be that person, we will give you those tools necessary. And it's proven that folks get jobs without prior experience if you put in the work and use the tools and the resources that we give you. At the end of the day, what the outcomes are twofold. Number one, land the pre-sales role that you want. And number two, and this is honestly, I think, one of the most important things, I want to see you set up for long-term success in your career. This is not just about that next job. This is about the future career, the decade, 2 decade, 3 decade long career that you're going to have in a profession that I have a tremendous amount of love for and could not imagine not being a part of. And I
Very
think,
well said.
Nina, I'm handing it back over to you now.
Yeah, no, very well said, Liz. I love when you get into the passion about PreSales Academy. We are very close to presenting our graduate speaker, but I know Liz has shared a lot about our program. I know y'all are like, hey, this sounds interesting. How do I get into PreSales Academy? Well, we always use an admissions process for every student that we admit to Pre-Sales Academy, because ultimately we are looking for students who we know are a good fit for the academy, but also a good fit for the profession, because we want to make sure that anyone coming into this program is going to have that successful transition into the profession. So what I like to say, what we're looking for here at Pre-Sales Academy is a lot of the kind of skills I was highlighting before. We refer to it as the 5 C's. So I'm always looking for students who have, first of all, a commitment to making this change into pre-sales. They have those strong communication skills I mentioned before. They have that curiosity, that drive to learn, because that's going to be so important as a career changer when you're kind of learning new subject matters. And also they need to have critical thinking and coachability, because so much of our program, like Liz highlighted, requires you to get feedback and apply it to make sure you're growing over time. So overall, this is our kind of outline admissions process. It starts with an application and a video, and then it kind of goes into talking with us further. I always recommend to people who are exploring pre-sales or pre-sales academy, applying is not a commitment to joining our program. It is just a step in the right direction. And it's a step to having one-on-one conversations with our team to get your answers answered, to make sure, hey, this is making sense for me in a long-term career. So that's our admissions process. Let's get into one of the funner parts of this presentation, is our amazing guest speaker. So I have Jimmy Lee here today, and he recently, I guess it was in January, started as a solutions consultant in his first role. I would like to say Jimmy really brings a unique set of experiences into the pre-sales profession. So he had a background as a strategic account director. And then when I met Jimmy, he was a master's student at Penn Engineering. So he has a little bit of a technical side, but it's always been a pleasure to have Jimmy in our cohort number 8. I'm going to let him do a better introduction of himself than I just did. But Jimmy, welcome. We are so happy to have you here.
Hey Nina, hey Liz, hey everyone who's joining. It's great to see you both again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am calling in currently from a call pod from our office. That's why my name is not showing up. Our office is based in Vancouver, so I'm calling in from the West Coast. And yeah, I'm so glad to be here today to share my story and hopefully inspire you of how I made the transition, and tell you a little bit more about my PSA journey. So my story really started back in 2020. It's actually like 4 years since the pandemic was been officially announced, like it was a thing. At that time, I was an account manager at an IT research firm. So just to take a step back, I have a background in sales, customer success, teaching, and computer science. So at that point, I graduated with an undergrad in business, and I was 3.5 years into my first job as an account manager. When the COVID pandemic started, I was at a point of my career where I was seeking for some more growth opportunities. At that career, I had a lot of experience doing customer facing work, and I loved interacting with customers. That's one thing I learned. The second thing I learned is that I really want to make a greater impact for my customers beyond just talking about commercials and talking about money. I want to get more technical, and I want to help solve their problems on a more impactful level. So I came across an opportunity to go back for more education, and I got into a master's program that was specifically designed for people without a technical background in computer science. So I made a really bold and brave decision to go to grad school full time, which means I decided to quit my full time job. And yeah, that kind of kicked off my career transition. Since then, I started teaching as well as a teaching assistant. So I taught a computer systems course at the University of Pennsylvania, and that lasted for about a year. And during that time, I was also exploring postgraduate plans. I was really struggling to think about a career path that would allow me to combine my previous background in sales, business, and also combine my new skills and teaching and also computer science. So um, that that was my frame of mind. I was in transition. I had this big direction in mind. Um, what happened next? I'm gonna take a pause here, and I'm gonna fast forward to the end of the story so that you guys know where I'm heading. Um, I attended a office site visit about a year ago in Vancouver, and this is like based in Mount Pleasant. This is the tech hub in Vancouver. And we visited some offices, Microsoft, SAP, all the big tech names. And I just remember going to those offices and just thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. And Vancouver is such a great city to live in. At that time, I was in Ontario. The winters were long, really cold, lots of snow, and Vancouver was really appealing. So now I'm kind of working at Mount Pleasant, which is the tech hub at a company called Truly You. This is a company that provides technology to help companies verify the identities of their potential customers or business partners. And I'm 2 months in. I just celebrated my 2 month anniversary earlier this week. And it's surreal. Every day that I come to work, it just feels still like a dream that it's happening. So how did I get from that point where I was struggling to figure out what the best path is forward to right now? I did a couple of things. First, I talked to people to network and figure out what are they doing with a similar background. So spoke to some classmates, and one of them happened to be in pre-sales. So that's when I first knew about pre-sales. And then another connection suggested pre-sales collective. So I joined the Slack community, and that's when I heard about PSA. It has been on my radar for the longest time. I've been listening to the podcasts. I've went to, funny enough, one of these webinars as an attendee. And then I decided to, start reaching out and start the admissions process, right? As Nina mentioned, it doesn't hurt to start the conversation. And I remember vividly when I spoke to Nina, I was on the fence because I was very busy with my grad school. And I actually didn't decide to join PSA until the very last minute. So it is not like, oh, you apply and then you're on the hook No, it's like an exploration process where you're doing your research and figuring out whether this is right for you. So I'm here speaking today because I went through PSA, Pre-Sales Academy. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about what my experience was like. So I did this program of, I think it was March to May of last year. At that point, I was still completing grad school, so I had to balance a couple things around. Um, there were 3 phases, as Liz mentioned. I think for me, stage 2 was the most heavy amongst all of them. Like if you're thinking about 8 to 10 hours per week for phase 1, then probably closer to 12 to 15 hours per week for phase 2. That was for me. And I think for the reason being, it's because you really get what you put in for PSA. Phase 2 is a lot of synchronous sessions and demos and preparation for phase 3. So it required a lot of just time to digest the material, practice, and then doing the demos and meeting with your mentors and all that. So stage 2 was pretty heavy, but I think for me, I really was strategic in scheduling my hours, time management. So I felt that I got a lot out of the entire program. And I think there are 3 aspects that I like to talk about. The first thing is that it's a lot of structure. So you follow through the curriculum and you're really well prepared to go into a demo situation and know how to structure your talk track and your presentation. And there are also like assignments, resources beyond the demos that will set you up for success. The second piece, it's the mentorship. So I stayed in contact with my PSA mentor throughout my job search process and even beyond. I'm actually going to be talking to him tomorrow as a touch point after I've started for 2 years. So that mentorship was valuable because it's a long and hard process to transition and pivot, and to get advice and encouragement from someone who's
Oh no. I think Jimmy's frozen. I'm sorry, y'all. He's getting into some good parts. I'm going to remove his spotlight and let him reload. But in the meantime, I'm going to answer some questions because I know we're towards the end of this session. So let me do a quick screen share. And if Jimmy gets back with us, we will put him back on. So amazing notes from Jimmy. I'm going to give him a round of applause and lots of good messages after this. But let's think about the Pre-Sales Academy experience. I know that y'all had some questions in the chat, so I'm hoping this slide will actually kind of illuminate some of those questions. There's a lot to think about when you're kind of exploring different routes to get into technical sales. And ultimately, when you're looking at different programs, different kind of ways in, I think these are what I like to say are the key experiences to consider when coming into Pre-Sales Academy. First of all, our cohorts are really small. We're sitting around like 22 to 24 students. We really want to make sure these experiences are smaller so that we can support the students that we're bringing into the program and making sure they're getting to that finish line of graduating and starting their job search process. Like Liz mentioned, we provide a lot of support. And like what Jimmy mentioned, we provide a lot of support. We want to make sure that ultimately that any student coming into this program is really feeling like, hey, I have someone to ask questions to guide me through this process. And also, we provide a lot of training and support for our students post-program in regards to their job search. So we provide our students that continuous support as well as resources to help drive their search. I see Jimmy's back with us. I'm going to put him back on very shortly. But let me get into my final slide for you all today. Just to be aware, for PreSales Academy, for this next cohort, we have 2 tuition options. So we do have an upfront tuition and we do have an income share agreement. These are the details for those 2 options. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. I'm happy to break down what does the income share agreement really look like. But my big note for you all is, if you're thinking about breaking into pre-sales, our April cohort is recruiting right now. The priority deadline for that cohort is this Friday, March 15th. So if you're interested, just apply. It's a step in the right direction. So that is my final note for you all. I will send information on how to apply and our socials. I'm going to hand over to Jenny because he got cut off in the most exciting part of his talk. Jimmy, let's get back to you to wrap up your story about yourself.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, guys.
Good.
Technical difficulties happen all the time during demos, so this is like a real life demonstration of that.
Exactly.
So I was talking about the 3 things I found most valuable from PSA. And I think the first thing was structure, doing demos. The second thing was the mentor. The last thing, it's the community, because in stage 3, you're pretty much kind of you're starting your job search process, and the job market is, it can be challenging. So it helps to have a community of peers who are going through the same thing, to kind of keep you accountable, and also just, rant at times when you're ghosted by
Sure.
companies. And, having Nina hosting weekly office hours is also a very good opportunity for us to get reoriented, get together and share some of the challenges and wins. So those are the things I found really, really helpful during PSA and after. In the interest of time, I'm gonna pause and answer any questions that you may all have.
Yeah. No, I miss you so much at office hours, Jimmy. Like it I love all of our students, but Jimmy was quite the jewel in office hours, made my weeks. Yes, let's see if we have any questions. So I do see a question about jobs in the UK. This program is limited for students in the US and Canada. We are looking to explore expansion in the future, but as of right now, it's not set in stone. So we will definitely kind of share more details as that kind of comes to fruition. Um, I'll have one last question for you, Jimmy, because I do want to wrap this up and because we are at the top of the hour. Jimmy, when you were looking into a pre-sales role, what kind of verticals were you really focusing on? Like what really excites what section of the tech world was like, hey, I want to work in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the good advice I got during the job search process is to start from what you're passionate about. So think about the apps that you use daily on your phone. Like, what are those apps that you love? Think about, what you do day to day in your job. What are some software that you use daily? Like if you're in sales, Salesforce is like, equivalent to like the most well used application out there. So because you're so familiar with those apps as a user, you will have the passion and the knowledge and the experience to talk about those in interviews. And I started there, but Truly You is in a very, very niche space. So I didn't really know about them until I saw this opportunity, and um, through networking and just doing my own research, this turns out to be a very fascinating space. So yeah, I'm very excited about the challenges that I get to solve in this industry.
Nice. I love that. Thank you for sharing, Jimmy. Well, We did go over time. I'm so sorry. Thank you all for staying late with us. If you have extra questions for us, please send it our way. Reach out. I'm going to send up a follow-up email. You could email us any questions you have. But thank you all for
Um,
being present.
Nina, I know there are two questions directed at me. Can I just rapid fire
Okay, go
question?
for it.
Okay. Question: what were the challenges of the job search and the hiring process? Very, very rough job market. So, persistence is key, and just finding your group and community to stay motivated. Second question: what's your favorite part about being a solutions consultant? It's really dynamic and cross-functional. You touch so many different teams, and you collaborate. And for me, it was just a very eye-opening experience working with salespeople, product managers, and engineers. And yeah, that's probably my favorite part at the moment.
Oh, thank you, Jimmy, for jumping in and answering those questions. I want to be mindful of your time, but thanks everyone for being here. Like I said, if you have any questions, reach out, but I'm going to end this session and we hope to see your application very soon. Have a good night. Bye.